This podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can now get 2 free audiobook downloads and a 30-day free trial at audible.bogosity.tv. Your choice from the world's largest selection of over 180,000 digital audiobooks and spoken word content for your iOS or Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audible.bogosity.tv now. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of January 15, 2017. The podcast that never has enough day in the time. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me this week is Travis Retriever. Travis, welcome back to the podcast.
Bork. Good to be here again.
Let's re-solidify the news of the bogus. Back in August, we debunked the myth that Uber wasn't helping the problem of drunk driving as one of the times the news media took idiot extraordinaire. Well, now these statistics are in from Austin, Texas. After kicking out Uber and Lyft, DWI rates have skyrocketed.
And if the opening paragraph is an indicator, I'm willing to wager that fatalities are on the rise as well.
Well, I didn't see any exact figures for fatalities, but according to the Austin Police Department's own data, the number of incidents had dropped to 358 in the month of May, down from an average of 525 a month before Uber came, which was an overall drop of 31%.
Yeah.
After Uber and Lyft ceased operations in Austin, DWI incidents had increased to 476 in July, an increase of 32% and an increase of 7.5% from the previous year.
Wow. So you would think the same people screaming about drunk driving, think of the children, yada yada, and other busybodies wouldn't be screaming about getting Lyft and Uber, or at least allowing them to function.
And this is the kind of thing you really don't want to say I told you so about, certainly when you're not like me. I think most of our regular listeners know I lost a wife to a drunk driver. Or Deborah Tatum, who lost her 20-year-old son Greg the same way. Tatum and her family firmly believe, and they're in Austin, they firmly believe that ride-sharing services like Lyft and Uber save lives by giving intoxicated people an easy way to get a ride so they don't get behind the wheel themselves. And Greg's brother, Brian, became an Uber driver for that very reason.
Wow. I remember hearing about a decade ago that there were these services prohibited by the government where folks who would drive vans to and from like bars or whatever they were being used in sort of a free market kind of way, like to transport drunk folk back home or wherever.
Yeah, I remember those.
If they couldn't afford a taxi. And I remember GovCo being the horrible people. They were, of course, shut them the hell down.
Yep.
On the grounds of, they can't accept tips because that means that they're like taxis and that's no good. A part of me kind of thinks that Uber and Lyft sort of sprang out of that.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of like it was just the right time for that sort of thing to happen because everyone has smartphones, everyone can run apps, and the technology's there. And if the taxis aren't going to take advantage of it, hey, other competitors are going to spring up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we covered before how those services left Austin after the city put these ridiculously burdensome regulations on them in order to protect their cronies in the taxi companies, and like we've seen in several other places as well. Tatum and many others predicted that exactly this would happen. Drunk driving would increase after Uber and Lyft went away, and they were right.
God.
And I think it brings another point to the forefront because when we talk about economic issues like market regulation, we're not just talking about dollar signs on a ledger, we're talking about real lives. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level.
Hey everybody, this is Dave of the Superplex Bros, and you're listening to the Bogosity Podcast. When you're done, why don't you head over to superplexbros.com. We have all kinds of editorials and reviews on video games and pro wrestling. We're also currently hosting a major project called the Superplex Pokemon League, and we're about to go into our 3rd season. We just had our actual draft, and we're going over all of the teams and their draft picks. So why don't you head on over there, check things out, and if you like, you can even check out the Superplex Brothers podcast, where Matt and I basically bullshit about video games, pro wrestling, or whatever the hell we want. Anyway, until next time, take care.
So, Travis, you wanted to talk about this horrible kidnapping of a disabled person by 4 black people.
Well, you know how people always say not to just share or blurt out your first thoughts, and, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Well, I'll put it this way, it's a good thing I'm not doing that here, because what I'd be saying wouldn't be very nice about them.
I wasn't really going to cover this, because I just don't know what I can say that hasn't been said 1,000 times already.
The only thing that I can personally add to it that...
Before you get into that, let me just remind everyone what we're talking about, and especially if you're listening from an archive years in the future.
Yeah.
It actually started on December 31st. There was an 18-year-old mentally disabled white kid, and he was dropped off at a McDonald's, and apparently he saw a couple of people he mistook for friends, and they grabbed him and kidnapped him, and his parents filed a report that he was missing. He was kidnapped, bound, gagged, beaten, forced to drink from a toilet bowl, and was even partially scalped with a knife. And the whole time, these 4 black perps were shouting out, "Fuck Trump" and "fuck white people." And they were all over the age of 18, by the way, so don't listen to this thing that says, oh, they were just kids. No, they're adults.
Although I fail to see how them being kids would make it any better.
Yeah. Now, they are calling it a hate crime, but not because it was a racial crime, which it absolutely was. Everyone seems to kind of be whitewashing that, but because he's disabled, which is also a protected group for hate crimes. But
yeah, so I've seen some people... Some of the more pedantic folks, and I want to say libertarian movement, which sadly there are a few too many of, to the point where I probably had to block more libertarians than any other group, because that stuff can get really annoying and grating. But yeah, people who were saying like, oh, well, the people who weren't calling were for hate crimes and stuff, and that kind of legislation were calling this a hate crime. Yeah, because we're asking for consistency from the left.
Right.
It was their standard. We want them to be held to it. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah, I mean, laws have to be applied consistently and impartially.
And I wish I could find a better source for this, because the closest thing to a source I have for this, unfortunately, would be an entry for a cracked photoplasty, which tend to be all over the place, but it was trying to debunk that one stereotype of, oh, the mentally ill people, the mad gunmen and stuff, those are the people who go on violent rampages, yada yada, but... They said that, as it so happens, people who are mentally ill are actually twice as likely to be the victim of a violent crime.
And they're less likely to commit acts of violence.
Funny how that works.
Well, and the left is, their common sense gun restrictions is, you gotta keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. I mean, okay, replace mentally ill with pretty much any other group.
Hell, it's like, if you really want to be consistent, then shouldn't they also include blacks in that list?
Well, that was actually what the first gun control laws in this country were for, to stop free blacks from getting their hands on firearms.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah, that's the history of it. It is amazing how many of those things are racial in origin.
I'm told another big one was the minimum wage law. Yeah. And Social Security, as you brought up before, yeah.
Yeah, and marriage licensing.
I want to say I heard from a comment on you on YouTube, something about marriage licensing being like so the government could treat women as property or something like that.
No, it was originally so that blacks wouldn't marry whites.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, this is why we call leftists regressives and eugenicists, because those are the policies they support, and that's the effect they have.
Yeah, it was all from the eugenics movement. And they haven't changed the policies at all, just the rhetoric they used to defend it.
I wanted to bring that story up just because a lot of these stories make me depressed and make me want to curl into a ball and cuddle under my covers or something, but this story actually made me legitimately angry.
Yeah.
Like, really angry.
We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. Alright, after that I think we need to look at something a little on the lighter side. Now here's a trigger word that every broadcaster, podcaster, and YouTuber needs to avoid. The ALEXA word. That's the word that Amazon Echo uses for its voice activation. And along with that, we should avoid the S word for iPhones and iPads, the OKG word for Android and Google Home devices, and the C word for Microsoft devices. And it's actually been an issue because when broadcasters say these words, it activates everyone's devices.
That would explain last night how I think I might have said something, or maybe my computer said something, and I heard my phone act up, and it came up with a Google search engine or whatever. I'm like, whoa, what the heck was that?
Yeah. It's weird. It's happened to me a few times when no one's even said the okay, you know what. I'm just like, watching Netflix or something. All of a sudden it activates. I'm like, what? And so I'd rewind it, about 15 seconds. They get to that same part again and it would activate. They're not saying anything that sounds like it, but somehow to the phone, it kind of sounds like they're saying that.
I guess it sounds like the software still has a few kinks and bugs to work out, but it sounds like it's come a long way in the past decade or two.
It has. The voice recognition is actually very good, but they don't have it where you sit down and train it with your voice. I think a lot of them have the option to do that, but mostly it's got to be just very broad about it and listen for anyone saying that collection of phonemes.
This kind of sounds like the sort of thing you'd hear, like, in an old sci-fi comedy thing, like maybe on the Jetsons or something, or maybe something on the Sci-Fi Channel. Oh, God.
Well, listen to this incident involving CW6 in San Diego, which should be a cautionary tale. They covered an incident where these parents had a daughter who accidentally ordered a dollhouse online, and reporter Jim Patton said, quote, "I love the little girl saying, A word, ordered me a dollhouse," except he said the actual word, and listeners all over San Diego had their Amazon Echo devices activate in an attempt to order a dollhouse.
Oh my God. Okay, so pay attention, SJWs. This is an example of a legitimate trigger word.
A literal trigger word.
Well, yeah.
Stephen Cobb, senior security researcher for ESET North America, explained the issue, quote, "These devices don't recognize your specific voice, and so then we have the situations where you have a guest staying or you have a child who is talking and accidentally order something because the device isn't aware that it's a child versus a parent." And he advised people to go into the settings of these devices and see what you can change. And sometimes you can actually train it to respond to your voice specifically, although that might not work for a device where you want the whole family to be able to use it. But you can also sometimes change the activation word, and you can also have a PIN be required before ordering something, and I think that's actually the default on Amazon Echo, but the problem is a lot of people say, oh, that's annoying, and they turn it off, but then it results in things like your Echo ordering a dollhouse when you're listening to a news broadcast.
Oh, God. Probably the absolute worst with this would have to be Steam. Let me explain what I mean. You know how on most websites you can be logged in from two different instances,
Yeah, like you're logged in from your desktop computer and your laptop at the same time.
Yeah, well, Steam is kind of a bitch with that. They basically want you to be logged in from their specific program client. On their client, despite it actually being actual web pages they show you, there's no place for it to display, much less copy and paste a URL. So say if you want to friend someone on there, they also make it so that people can have the same name. So if someone has about 1,000 of the same name, and you're trying to find that specific one person with it, and you need a URL, you're pretty much SOL. Well, okay, so no problem, you try to log in on, say, Firefox or Chrome or whatever. Well, it'll basically panic, requiring you to go through an email. They'll send you an email with, I'm not sure if it's plain text or not, it probably isn't, but who knows. With a code that you have to enter in, okay, this computer is safe.
Yeah, that'll be plain text.
And the kicker is, you then have to do this every single time you log into it, even if you've already done it before. And I'm like, oh my god, what the... Come on, my bank isn't this paranoid. What the hell?
That's like the worst form of two-factor authentication I think I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's really paranoid, and it is really annoying.
I wonder if it's something like, because they have paid games on there too, don't they?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's something like they just don't want, people on two different computers using it at the same time on where you've only paid for it once but two people are playing it.
At the very least, it's kind of annoying, and probably a reason why most of us don't like DRM. I mean, it's like, guys, you're punishing me for buying your game legally from you. I thought the point was to reward us, that would give us an economic incentive. I'm having to explain this. You're the businessman, not me! I'm just some loser who lives... God.
Yeah, as for the parents in the original story, although Amazon says they'll accept returns of accidental orders, the parents opted not to return the dollhouse, but donated it to a local children's hospital instead.
Aw, that was sweet.
Yeah, that's a nice, sweet little story it ended up being. Bogosity.tv gives you great ways to shop at Amazon. Clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv and you won't pay a penny more for your purchase. Or go to prime.bogosity.tv for a 30-day free trial of Amazon Prime and enjoy thousands of movies and TV episodes, borrowed Kindle books, and get unlimited 2-day shipping for free. And speaking of Kindle, go to kindle.bogosity.tv for a 30-day free trial to Kindle Unlimited. Read over 1 million books and listen to thousands of audiobooks on any device. Or go to home.bogosity.tv to try Amazon Home Services. Over 1,000 different services from quality hand-picked pros, from house cleaning to equipment and furniture assembly, plumbing, electrical, painting, and other handyman services, all backed by Amazon's happiness guarantee. And as always, check the right-hand side of the podcast page for special Amazon deals. So we're still hearing all this stuff about how Facebook and even the government needs to step in to restrict fake news, and we've been wondering why that wouldn't also apply to CNN, MSNBC, and all those others.
It just seems to be where they're just whitelisting the big mainstream outlets like...
Well, and it's the big mainstream outlets who are going to be doing the fact-checking.
Gee. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? A monopoly on information.
And someone else who wonders the same thing is Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept, who published an article detailing exactly how false claims end up getting published. He wrote, quote, "Nothing makes you internalize just how often it really happens, how completely their editorial standards so often fail, like being personally involved in a story that receives substantial media coverage. I cannot count how many times I've read or heard claims from major media outlets about the Snowden story that I knew from first-hand knowledge were a total fabrication." And he's talking specifically about a new book by Edward J. Epstein, who wrote a book full of basically every debunked lie ever told about Snowden, up to and including him being a Russian spy.
So it's not just the leftist with the tinfoil hats on about Russia. Good to know.
So anyone familiar with Snowden can see the lies instantly, and no one more so than Greenwald. Quote, "The book has been widely discredited even before its release, as it is filled with demonstrable lies. The usually rhetorically restrained Bart Gellman, whose work on the Snowden story at the Washington Post won the 2014 Pulitzer Prize for Public Service, called the book bad faith work that is filled with distortions and baseless and bizarro claims, several of which he documented. I've documented some of the other obvious falsehoods in the book. Even top NSA and CIA officials who despise Snowden and have repeatedly attempted to disparage him have rejected the book's central conspiracy theory that Snowden has worked with the Kremlin. In 2014, Epstein, citing what he claimed a government official told him off the record, wrote my favorite sentence about this whole affair, one that I often quoted in my speeches to great audience laughter. There are only 3 possible explanations for the Snowden heist. 1. It was a Russian espionage operation. 2. It was a Chinese espionage operation. Or 3. It was a joint Sino-Russian operation. He's apparently now opted for door number 1.
God.
He also mentions a New York Times book review by Nicholas Lemann, Pulitzer Moore Professor of Journalism at Columbia University and longtime staff writer for The New Yorker, quote, Lemann himself is highly dismissive of the book's central accusations about Snowden and does a perfectly fine job of explaining how the book provides no convincing evidence for its key conspiracies. But he also said, quote, nonetheless, there is one statement in Lemann's review that is misleading in the extreme, and another that is so blatantly factually false that it's mind-boggling it got approved by a New York Times editor and presumably a fact-checker. But it is worth looking at because it illustrates how easily this happens. Here's the first one. Snowden, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, and their immediate circle of allies come from a radically libertarian hacker culture that most of the time doesn't believe there should be an NSA at all, whether or not it remains within the confines of its legal charter.
Even if that's true, so what?
Yeah. But he goes on, quote, Snowden believes nothing of the kind. In fact, he believes exactly the opposite, that the NSA performs a vital function and many of its programs are legitimate and important. He has said this over and over. That's why he wanted to work for the agency. It's why he refused to dump all the documents he took and instead gave them to journalists, demanding that they only publish those that exposed information necessary to inform the public debate. Precisely because he did not want to destroy NSA programs he believes are justifiable. But while that passage from Lemann is misleading, his final paragraph is outright false as a clear factual matter. And this is Greenwald quoting Lemann. This time around, Epstein's concern seems to be half with the celebratory closed loop between Snowden and the journalists who covered him, and half with the causes and consequences of a major security breach at the NSA. The heart of the matter is the second of these concerns, not the first. In the Snowden affair, the press didn't decide what stayed secret, and neither did Congress, the White House, or the NSA. Snowden did. And this is Greenwald again. This is the exact opposite of the truth. It is a fundamentally false description of what happened. Most amazingly, the New York Times knows firsthand that this claim it just published is false because of its direct involvement in reporting the Snowden archive. Not a single document that saw the light of day was published because Snowden decided it should be. Literally not one. Snowden played no decision-making role whatsoever in determining which documents were published and which were withheld. What happened was exactly the opposite of what Lemann told New York Times readers. It was the press, not Snowden, that decided what stayed secret and what was reported. The New York Times knows firsthand that Lemann's claim is false because that paper possessed a large portion of the Snowden archive and published all of its stories without ever obtaining Snowden's permission. Indeed, Snowden at times vehemently disagreed with decisions made by the NYT and other outlets to publish certain material. As Snowden told Time, and this is Greenwald quoting Snowden, there have, of course, been some stories where my calculation of what is not public interest differs from that of reporters, but it is for this precise reason that publication decisions were entrusted to journalists and their editors.
That does put a damper on Snowden's reputation, at least to me, because he wasn't quite as against all the stuff as I thought he was. But yeah, he was still at least trying to be nice and even let these folks decide, and they still basically sold him out. So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's not an anarcho-capitalist or anything like that. He's not, a bring all this crumbling to the ground kind of libertarian, but, I mean, that just makes it even more powerful, I think, when you've got someone who believes in the NSA and their mission, who's coming out and saying, hey, these guys are doing wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. I knew I never liked the New York Times, but if I definitely wasn't reading or even clicking on their stuff before, you better believe I won't be doing it now.
And that's how Greenwald seems to feel, quote, How can the New York Times allow Lemann to make such a blatantly false claim about how this reporting took place and who made the decisions about what should and should not be secret? One of the great benefits of new media, of online reporting, is that one can provide proof of one's claims in the form of links, as I've done here, so that readers can determine if journalistic claims have evidentiary support. That is such a vital exercise because, as Lemann and the NYT just demonstrated, it is so often the case that the most influential media outlets publish factually false statements using the most authoritative tones. This episode illustrates yet again why everyone is well advised not to believe assertions from any authority or institution that are unaccompanied by evidence you can see and evaluate for yourself.
Roman, to the old media, this is why people like me don't trust you.
Exactly.
If you repeatedly lie, without even hesitation like that, and when people rightly stop taking you seriously as a result, you've no one to blame but yourself.
History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's LibertyClassroom.com. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, LibertyClassroom.com teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects, and when you sign up, you get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit LibertyClassroom.com. And now it's time to micturate all over this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And this week, Neil Purcell has nominated CNN and Buzzfeed for credulously reporting as fact something that apparently started as a joke on 4chan.
Oh my god!
Here's the basic story. Classified documents from anonymous sources confirm that Trump is in bed with Russia because of blackmail. As the story goes, Trump once visited Russia and finds a hotel room that Obama once stayed in. He then has a couple of prostitutes urinate all over the bed where Obama once slept because he hates Obama, and Obama will be inconvenienced by this in some inexplicable way.
God.
Oh, but little did Trump know that Putin pulled a Nixon and Watergated the hell out of that hotel room, installing video cameras that caught this salacious act. Russia tells Trump that they will release this video unless he runs for president and does their evil bidding.
Oh my god. And of course the people screaming, Russians hacked the election, of course, I'm sure, ate it all up.
BuzzFeed actually published the dossier believing it to be legit,
Figures.
and CNN reported on it credulously. Others weren't so impressed. The Herald Sun posted, quote, "The decision by BuzzFeed to publish a 35-page dossier on Trump didn't just stretch the merits of journalistic integrity, it tore it to shreds, set it on fire, and then urinated all over its smoldering remains." And Spiked editor Brendan O'Neill said, quote, "It's okay to push this fantastical news, these rumors, because their target is Trump, and we all hate Trump, right?" And what's more ridiculous is that apparently the originator of the story wasn't some intelligence insider leaking information on condition of anonymity, but a prankster on 4chan. At least according to 4chan posters on /poll, 4chan users made up this document, or at least part of it. I'm not even sure. I have to admit I'm a little bit iffy about this, but we'll just go with it.
Yeah.
4chan users made up this document and emailed it to anti-Trump media strategist Rick Wilson, who thought it was real and gave it to the CIA. The CIA put it in their intelligence report and concluded that Russia was blackmailing Trump.
Jeez.
Now, Wilson denies being the source. According to the Wall Street Journal, it was authored by former British spy Christopher Steele. Most reports say it came from MI6.
Okay, quick question. What's MI6?
That's like the UK's version of the CIA.
Oh, okay.
But the biggest problem is that the documents don't even appear to be actual CIA or MI6 documents. At the top it says, confidential/sensitive source, but US and UK intelligence agencies don't mark documents like that. The UK government marks documents official, secret, or top secret. US agencies mark them confidential, secret, or top secret.
So, that should have been a red flag right there. In politics, there are no unbiased sources.
Right.
End of.
And just a comment to the news media and to leftists in general. Stop making us defend Trump! We don't like Trump! We want to talk about what an idiot Trump is, but you guys keep coming along and one-upping him.
For crying out loud, leftists and media folk, of the 10 million things you could rightly rip Trump a new one over, like his economic policy, his stances on taxes or gun control, his isolationism and other nonsense, you end up going off on the one thing that, for all his faults, he's actually not too shabby with. His stance on LGBTQI and the like. I mean, my God, are you trying to get him elected a second term?
I've kind of been wondering if Trump is really Emmanuel Goldstein.
Okay, that...
You read 1984, right?
I was born in 88.
That doesn't mean you can't read the book.
I never read it. And I know I probably should. I'm losing libertarian cred for having not read that, but...
Yeah, you need to read it, yeah. Emmanuel Goldstein was supposedly the leader of this resistance, and Big Brother would put him on the screen every day for the 2 minutes hate, and he would say all these ridiculous things like, let's have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, free assembly, things like that. And everyone would do the hate, and they'd yell, and they'd, jeer at him and spit at him and things like that.
God.
And it turned out he was in league with Big Brother the whole time.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you know how you feel about Trump? This is how us libertarians feel about all politicians all of the time. Welcome to our world.
Well, whatever the source of this document, 4chan or MI6 or whatever, it's completely idiotic for media outlets to treat it in any way credible. Which is why, even if the 4chan angle is bogus, I still agree with Neil Purcell that CNN and Buzzfeed are absolutely this week's biggest Bogon emitter. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And now let's mummify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And this week it goes to David Blaine, who is kind of half magician, half stuntman, half imbecile. And yes, I know that's 3 halves, but that's how much of an imbecile he is. He's been going around for years doing his version of the famous bullet catch trick, except that apparently no one told him it was an actual trick and you weren't supposed to actually fire a bullet at your actual face.
Oh my God.
And in his recent Beyond Magic special, he actually managed to shoot himself in the head. Yes, he turned a gun on his own mouth in front of 20,000 people at Las Vegas's MGM Grand Garden Arena. He placed in his mouth a special cup to catch the bullet. When he fired the bullet into the cup shattered. Blaine ended up with a lacerated throat. Fortunately, he'll make a full recovery. But his friends have refused to assist him with the stunt ever again, although stupidly Blaine says he'll continue to do the stunt.
Oh my God, jeez. I imagine it's that one line right there that certified him, that pretty much guaranteed him that spot as a date extraordinaire.
Well, I mean, just doing it that way to begin with.
I mean, I've heard of shooting your mouth off, but that wasn't quite what we were meaning with that.
Well, Penn Jillette has made no bones about how he feels about magicians who actually put themselves at risk to do a performance, and he actually talked about Blaine himself back in November, before it was known that this is actually a stunt and not a trick, so that's why you'll hear him talking as if it's either way, because he didn't know. Now, I've edited this down some, but here he is in episode number 247 of his Penn Sunday School podcast.
Let me say a few things about David Blaine. One, he's a friend of mine, always nice to me. Two, the best magic TV special ever done. Best TV special was 33 1/3 revolutions per minute by the Monkees. The best magic TV special ever done was Street Magic, the very first David Blaine special.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Changed magic, changed everything. But he did the bullet catch. Now, the bullet catch is the trick that is most associated with Penn and Teller. It is not originally our trick. It goes back hundreds of years. But I want to say categorically that what David Blaine did is wrong. David Blaine pretends that the bullet catch is not a trick. He pretends it's a stunt. Is there a chance that it's really a stunt? I hope not. Because if he did what he says he did and actually did the bullet catch, first of all, it's not a magic trick. Second of all, it is morally wrong. It is artistically wrong. It is aesthetically wrong. Entertainment is supposed to be a celebration of life and a celebration of health. You come to see our show, not to see us get hurt. 16 people have died doing the bullet catch. The reason we did it was we have a version that's completely safe. When we do the bullet catch, the chances you'll see one of us get hurt are as close to zero as you can imagine. They're the same as the chances of us getting hurt doing a card trick, a light falling on us, an earthquake, Ebola breakout. Those are the dangers. The dangers are not from the gun and bullet. As soon as you cross over to an event where either you really can get hurt or you want people to really believe you can get hurt, you are no longer doing art. You are doing some sort of gladiatorial spectacle that is morally wrong and has no part of our culture anymore. When Hillary Clinton and Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about having these violent games, they are deeply misunderstanding. There are no violent video games. They do not exist. There are video games that artistically depict violence. No one is hurt making a video game, and no one should be hurt making an entertainment. And if you lie about being hurt because you think your audience wants to see you hurt, fuck you. You are a fabulous, fabulous magician.
Yep.
I wish, David Blaine, you would brag about doing tricks, which is what you predominantly do. And if you're doing stuff for real and you can really get hurt, I don't mind you being uncomfortable. I don't mind him starving in the box for 3 months. I don't care if he does that. I don't mind him being on a block of ice. I don't mind him doing anything that is uncomfortable. I'm talking about real danger, and I'm talking about cultivating an audience that wants to see people get hurt. We are better than that. So when people said, what did you think of David Blaine's bullet catch? The answer is, I don't know, because I will never see it, because morally it is off my list and I will not watch it. And when Chris Angel does this, I might really get hurt being run over by a bulldozer, whatever the fuck he does. Fine. We love your magic. Great. Terrific. But don't insult your audience by acting like they are bloodthirsty motherfuckers. Listen, I know I get really trickly with this peace and love shit, but you know it matters. People get hurt as firemen. People get hurt as police officers. There are heroes who have to take chances to save other people. Those are real heroes. People who do it for entertainment are an insult, a burlesque, a sickening aspect of our culture. Don't try to pretend you have a big dick like a firefighter because you do card tricks. Just don't do it. It's an insult to all the 9/11 first responders. It's an insult to all the smoke jumpers. It's an insult to all the Doctors Without Borders. If you really want to take a chance, David Blaine, go to Syria where they can use your help. Become a firefighter. Do something that's really heroic. Don't put a tin cup in your head and ram it into the back of your throat and act like you're some sort of hero because people want to see people get hurt. Because I'm speaking for everybody, we do not want to see people hurt. We want to see people healthy, and then we want to see special effects like The Walking Fucking Dead, where heads get ripped off and all of that happens and no one gets hurt. I get crazy about this. New York Times does this review of Die Hard 3 when it came out, that 340 people died. No one died. I looked up at it. No one got injured doing the Die Hard movies. That's the way art is. And by the way, if you're doing a trick and you get hurt, you're a shitty magician. Anybody can do a fucking bullet catch and get hurt. That requires no skill at all. Doing a bullet catch like Penn and Teller did for 30 years, most nights on stage, or 25 years, most nights on stage, with nobody, no crew member, no Penn and Teller, no audience member ever being injured. That is a trick. That is a good magician. That was Penn Sunday School.
There are magicians, and then there are morons who do stupid things. David Blaine is the latter, so that makes him this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this Have You Tried Turning It Off and On Again edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to join in by sending a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Travis Retriever for joining me.
It was a pleasure, as always.
Until next time, here's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. It is a melancholy truth that a suppression of the press could not more completely deprive the nation of its benefits than is done by its abandoned prostitution to falsehood. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
Want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again.